In Shevi'i of Parshat Yitro, in terms of the reading of the Torah, we've just come to the conclusion of the Aseret HaDibrot. And then we are told, and that would appear to be what is happening after the Aseret HaDibrot, V'chol ha'am ro'im et hakolot v'et halapidim v'et kol hashofar v'et har Hashem. The people see this powerful demonstration of the sounds that they hear, the lights, the flashes, the smoking mountain, the sound of the shofar. Vayar ha'am, they saw vayanu, vayamdu me'rachok. And the people, yanua, they stood from a distance. And vayanu is explained as they were in fright. I'll follow Rashi at this point. They were in great fright. Okay. Hayomru el Moshe. So they said to Moshe, Daber atoi manu v'nishma. You speak with us, and we will. V'al yedaber imanu Elokim pen namut. Let us not hear the voice of God, lest we die. Moshe says to the people, Vayomer Moshe elam al tiro. Don't be afraid. Ki l'vavur nasot etchem ba'alokim. God has come to nasot, the word nes. We'll come back to that in a moment. Uvavur tiyeh yirato al pneichem, and so that his yirah, the yirah of God, the fear of God, should be upon your faces, l'vilti techatau, so that you not sin. And then, once again, it would seem, Vayamod ha'amar yochok, we repeat that, the people, we had learned that they were standing a distance, Vayiramam, Vayanu, Vayamdu me'rachok, here we're told again, Vayamod ha'amar yochok. Moshe nigash el arafel asher sham Elokim. Moshe approaches the dark cloud where there's, which is where God is. So there are a number of questions here. One question is, and both of them are fairly obvious. One question is, they are told by Moshe, don't be afraid. And then they're immediately told by Moshe, do not fear. And in the same pasuk, right? In the very same pasuk, they are told that the point of this is in order that the fear of God, the yirah of God, should be upon your faces, that you not sin. That's number one. Number two, what Moshe said to them, what difference did it make? They were standing from afar, and they're still standing from afar. We're told at the beginning of this dialogue that the people saw vayanu, vayamdu, me rachok. Okay? V'chol ha'am ro'im et hakolot, vayar vayanu, vayamdu me rachok. And at the end, they're in the same position. Vayamod ha'am me'rachok. So, in answer to this, we have to note that the word vayanu can have, lanua, can have two meanings. And one meaning is the meaning of trembling, to be in fear. And the other meaning is the meaning of motion, as is said of Cain, na v'nad tiyeh ba'aretz. You'll be a wanderer, you'll be a mover on the earth. And the Ramban addresses these two questions. One question is, when did this take place? Did this take place, this whole issue that we're describing here, after Matan Torah, after the Aseret HaDibrot, as would seem in the text, or is it describing the experience before Matan Torah, when the sounds and the frightening flashes of light and the smoking mountain? And the Ramban says that Chazal say it took place. Chazal say that the meaning of Yonua is zeya, is trembling, and the Ramban says that the Balei Hapshat, the masters of Pshat, is movement. Interesting is the Baal HaTurim. The Baal HaTurim says, Vayar ha'am vayanu'u, therefore, al kain, noim b'shat limud haTorah. That's why we move about while we're learning Torah. I'm moving about now. This is called shuckling, right? The limud haTorah, the fisha Torah nitna be'ema b'resav zeya, because the Torah is given with trembling. So we also move about. This, in Yiddish, we call this to shuckle. People, when they stand before God, as Am Yisrael stood before God at Har Sinai, so that's the introduction to the giving of the Torah, that we stand before God halachically, we stand before God in tefillah. Ki'ilu omeid lifnei hashchina. Tefillah is whereas a person is standing in the presence of God. So people shuckle because we're trembling. Okay, the Kotzker Rebbe said in a very sharp manner that even though he might have accepted the idea in other things, he seems to accept the idea of movement during prayer, shuckling. The Kotzker Rebbe is nonetheless says or meant to say that shuckling is not prayer, right? Because if he is known to have said that a person could shuckle and yet be very far away from God, because the Torah says, "Vayar ha'am, vayanu," they moved about, they shuckled. That's how you translate the word, but they stood meirachok, perhaps playing on the Chazal, which says that it's Omeid Lifnei HaMelech. The Am Yisrael was shuckling, but they were standing, and Tefillah, Shmon Esrei, is halachically called Amidah, Omeid Lifnei HaMelech, but they stood at great distance from the mountain, at great distance from God. But be it as it may, what is Moshe saying, and what is the difference between the fear and the movement and so on and so forth? So I think that this is clarified by understanding that the word yirah means two things. One is that of naked fear, of consequences. Somebody is raising a fist to me, raising a club, threatening me. I might suffer great pain if I do X, or so on and so forth. And that's fear. Fear of the consequences is the word yirah in Hebrew. That is relevant to God because there is reward and punishment is something to be afraid of. But there is another kind of meaning of the word yirah, which in English we will translate, as is often translated when you have the word fear represented in the word norah, awesome, a word destroyed by California English, in which everything becomes awesome. But awesome is the sense, if you will, of inconsequentiality in the presence of the overwhelming, of that which is so great, so magnificent, so beyond me, so profound, so all-encompassing. All these things, one can be in awe of a molecule, and one can be in awe of Mount Everest. And surely one can be in awe of great people, but beyond all awes are the awe that we would have for the Ribono Shel Olam, for God. And that sense of awe is also yirah. And we move between the lower yirah and the higher yirah. And what Moshe says is Don't be afraid on the lower level, because God, ki leba'avur nasot etchem, God is trying to nasot, to test you, but the root of nasot, and Rashi alludes to this, and the root here is every nisayon is the word nes. Now we think when we hear the word nes, it automatically means miracle, and it does, but the ultimate meaning of the word nes is it comes from a banner raised high, and it is to raise somebody up. Every test, every trial is a trial of surpassing myself, of going beyond where I was before. It's the last mile or the last minute, or in the Nisyonot, the 10 trials of Avram, it's to go further and further in his quest for standing in the presence of God. And so the Pasuk says, Moshe says, Al tiro, don't be afraid, such as that you are running away, you are standing merachok, right? Vayanu, ki lelavur nasot etchem ba'elokim, because God is coming to raise you up. And Rashi says, legadel etchem ba'olam, to raise you in the world, to make you greater, to transcend yourself in front of that which is wholly transcendent. Ulevavur, and now Yira comes, right? Don't be afraid of the lower level, but rather, Ba'avur tiyeh yirato al pneichem, it will be on your face. In other words, you will embody awe of God. It will be on your face. Now, there might be a higher level, and perhaps that higher level is represented by another person whom you can look at and see something terrific, incredible, if you will, awesome. And that other person, the Jewish people are spoken to by Moshe in such a way that he's saying to them that awe will be seen on your face. But Moshe, beyond that, Moshe was seen with light on his face. The face of Moshe shone when he came down from the mountain. And the people were in awe of that. And Moshe had to cover his face because it was too much. So levilti tech ta'u. So the awe should be, there are two reasons we should not sin. One reason is we're going to get punished. But the ultimate reason is because yirato al pneichem means levilti techata'u, that you not sin, not out of fear, but out of awe. Or as the Kotzker Rebbe said, how can a person sin? One should not sin because it's a waste of time. What he means, it's a waste of opportunity. You're in the presence of God. Let God in wherever you are. Don't sin, because that is moving away from God. That is running away from God. And that is the Yira al Pneichem. Now, we pray every day. V'ho'er einenu. This is a bracha of Kabbalah Satorah. Ava Rabba or Ava Olam, which we say before Shema, can substitute for the brachos that we say on Torah if a person didn't say the brachos on Torah. Because the bracha, Ava Rabba, ends with Habocher bi'amo Yisrael bi'avo, the choice. That's a bracha of the Torah. Right? And what do we say? Ava Rabba Avtanu. Let us be in the world of Ava Rabba. The Ava you gave to us, if you will. Let us not sin, of course, right? Right? But beyond that, enlighten us. Let us relate to Torah and mitzvahs on the level of Ava. And so we say, V'ho'er eineinu b'toratecha. V'ho'er eineinu b'toratecha. V'dabek libeinu. Enlighten us. And so there are two, perhaps, there are the Vayanu Ha'am. Vayanu Ha'am, in the first, when we could say they are, something is amiss. Vayanu Ha'am, switching the definitions back and forth. Vayanu Ha'am, what is said, if we'll translate it, unlike Rashi, but like the Pashtanim, as they were running away, and running away, they stood from afar away. But what we see in their running away was a movement away from the possibility of receiving the Torah. Because to receive the Torah, they have to be united as a people. And part of the bracha of Torah that we say, V'yached levaveinu, let us get it together between man and his fellow man, woman and fellow woman, the one and the other, right? As a people, am echad b'leiv echad, but v'yached levaveinu, me as an individual, myself as an individual, let me get it together. And in Imitatio Dei, as we say about God, that God is echad, so let me say about myself, v'yached levaveinu li'ava u'liyira et shemecha, that ava, the love, and the fear of God can become one, and can be that which, while from the outside the words sound like it's either or, it can't be both, but li'ava u'liyira, in which ava, love, and awe are joined inseparably together. And the one difference between the people moving away is that the people vayanu'u vayamdu merachok. And after Moshe says this to them, tells them what I've just explained, the pasuk says, Vayamod ha'am merachok. The people singularly stood. They've come back to the moment that they can receive the Torah.